The Trump administration's crusade to cut government may be coming to the post office. On Friday, the president said he may put the Postal Service under the control of the Commerce Department after operating as an independent entity for more than a half a century. The Washington Post reports the Postal Service is governing board plans. They plans to fight this takeover, but the White House may try to dissolve that board. Joining me now is Mark Dimondstein, president of the American Postal Workers. To start, the Postal Service is one of the most diverse employers in the country. More than a third of the workforce is made up of people of color. About 21% are Black Americans. What is at stake for these workers if Trump's plans are carried out, Mark?
Well, Reverend Sharpton, thanks so much for having me on. If these plans are carried out, it's a dagger at the heart of the American people and their democratic right to public postal service, universal service, wherever they live, whoever we are. So that's fundamentally at stake. But also, we know that good jobs build good communities, good union jobs, good living wage jobs. And we're very proud of the fact that in the post office, we're a very diverse workforce. And so not only at stake are the services to the people of the country, but at stake is the question of good union living wage jobs that help our communities and our families thrive.
Now, this isn't the first time Trump has tried to mess with the post office. During his first term, he appointed Republican donor Louis DeJoy as Postmaster General. DeJoy is a former shipping company executive who has been accused throughout his tenure of trying to undermine the post office as a public service. DeJoy announced last week he's retiring. Can you talk about the impact he had on the post office leading up to that moment? Well,
look, there are many angles to talk about the PMG. I think one thing that we can accept, and the people that we represent, the hardworking postal employees dedicated to the people of the country, is that, yes, there is a fundamental need for change. The habits, the communication habits of the people of the country in the Internet age really have permanently changed the way that we communicate with each other. And that's had a deep effect on the finances of the post office. Letter volume is down. Packages are growing and need to grow more. So I think the PMG has made some honest efforts to try to make that change. Now, that doesn't mean we agree with every aspect of the change. But one thing he did do, and we should not lose sight of, in 2020, when he first came in, and there were some moves to slow down the mail, we, the people, rose up and said, look, we got an election going on in the middle of a pandemic, the 2020 presidential election. Vote by mail is fundamental to people exercising their cherished democratic rights. And Louis DeJoy ended up rising to the occasion, and we had a very successful vote by mail 2020. And President Trump, who believes the election was rigged, or says the election was rigged, likes to target the post office, postal workers, and maybe that's partly why he seems to be targeting the PMG himself in this period. But it's a challenging time for the post office, and we don't deny that. The people feel it. The service does need to be fixed and improved and ever better. But it's fundamentally there for the American people, a cherished, storied national treasure. And if I can add, Reverend, it's quite ironic to me that we're about to celebrate the 250th anniversary, the birthday party of the Postal Service, as you pointed out in your opening, 1 year older than the country itself. And like I said, a storied national treasure serving everybody, whether it's with medicines, whether it's with information, whether it's financial transactions, whether it's our ballots, whether it's our birthday cards from the grandparents to the grandkids, and vice versa. Now it's all up for grabs. So happy birthday, APWU, from this, not APWU, that's us. Happy birthday, Postal Service, from the Trump administration. We're going to kill you. And what we're seeing in front of our eyes is a billionaire coup attempt. Take the post office, break it up, sell it off to private companies that will then determine who gets mail and package services based on whether somebody can make a quick buck and laugh all the way to the bank, rather than a right of the people to have these services no matter who we are and where we live.
And determine who gets those postal jobs. But let me go to this issue. We've talked earlier in the show about the letter Elon Musk and Doge sent to all federal employees this weekend demanding that they justify their jobs by midnight tomorrow. Have postal workers also received that email, and what do you make of this?
No, the Postal Services has not received that email. But if Trump, and let's not leave out the new Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who's a billionaire Wall Street hedge funder, who now Trump is saying should run the post office, they're going to go after jobs. They're going to go after good living wage union jobs and a really tremendously diverse workforce. So we're all working together to push this back. And I do think, if I can go back to the Louis DeJoy question very quickly, the people of the country should stay clear, I think, because this is affecting each and every postal customer. Everybody listening here is a postal customer, and we should be very, very concerned. But as we go through this attempt at a takeover, much like they're hollowing out, these billionaires are hollowing out the rest of government services, we have to be very clear. This is not about who the Postmaster General is today or tomorrow or yesterday. This is about an illegal takeover. The law is clear. It's established. The post office is enshrined in the Constitution, established by Congress, supported of the people, and within the 1970 law, it specifically says that the Board of Governors of the Postal Service are the only ones that can hire and fire a Postmaster General, and the Board of Governors are nominated by a president and confirmed by a Senate. And that was passed in 1970 to depoliticize the public postal service and make it run on a nonpartisan basis for all the people of the country. This step would do just the opposite. It'll lead to, eventually, this is a huge step towards privatizing the Postal Service, which means it will no longer belong to the people of this country. And our message is, let's fight together, let's work together, and make sure that the U.S. mail is not for sale, never was, and never shouldn't be now, and never should be in the future.
And never should be politicized. But following on what you just said, it seems to me that the Postal Service is something that many of us take for granted. Can you speak to what our society would lose in a world without an independent Postal Service, especially as we are increasingly becoming reliant on online commerce and services like Amazon for our daily essentials?
Right. That's a very interesting question, because there's some that would say, in the Internet world, who needs it anymore? But the reality is the public Postal Service, not only does it go to every address by law, so think about this, people in rural areas, people in urban areas, maybe a company can't make any money getting that package there, getting that letter there, and so people lose those entire services. The public postal service is also the low-cost anchor of the entire mailing and package industry. So think about e-commerce and the growth in packages. And what keeps these private companies from just raising prices, and raising prices? It's the public postal service that is the low-cost anchor. And by the way, it's an over $1 trillion industry, mailing package industry, that supports over 7 million jobs. So the loss of the post office would have a negative impact throughout our entire economy. And then, as you pointed out earlier, the question of good living wage jobs guts out and hollows out so much of our communities, because if we're not making a decent living, that spills out to everything in our neighborhoods and in our communities and in our country.
No, it certainly has a tremendous effect on the ground. Mark Dimondstein, president of the American Postal Workers Union, thank you for being with us tonight.